guys, it's Amanda with Healthy House on the block, here with another Healthy House tip on creating an indoor space and environment that supports your health and wellness. Today I'm going to share with you some really healthy ways that you can entertain and set a table and create a really healthy dining room. So we're going to look at different elements that go on a table. We're going to talk about the two kinds of entertaining, very casual and very formal, and how you can be very low toxin with each. There are a few key things that I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to show you exactly what to look for, but I'm also going to share with you a couple of my favorite picks when it comes to table settings and the dining room. So I'm going to bring you through a couple slides that will walk you through this week's blog post in more of a video format. If you're someone who wants the links to all of the products and the links to the studies that I'm mentioning, I would encourage you to head to this week's blog post. I have it listed at the bottom of the video description. Otherwise, if you're more of a visual person, let's get started.
So with the holidays around the corner, I thought it might be helpful to create a guide for you on just how to buy table setting components that are non-toxic and safe for you and your guests. Even if those guests are just your kids and parents, no matter how you opt to celebrate or how many people you intend to host, there are really cost-effective and healthy choices that you can make to reduce the toxin exposure in your home. I think especially when it comes to eating, it's important to reduce the number of toxins we're exposed to wherever we can. The plates that we eat off of and the utensils that we use can leach toxins into the food that we place on that surface. If it's possible to make a healthier choice of materials, I always advise to do so. That being said, I'm not asking you to completely replace all your dinnerware or buy expensive table setting items or go completely non-toxic in your space. Instead, let's just change a few things here or there that can really make an impact. If you're in the market for something new like we were, our kids had dropped the very last fragile bowl of our handed down 15-year-old dishes set, then it's a great time to research your purchase and make the non-toxic choice if you can. So when you're entertaining and setting up a spread, there's a few fun ways you can do it. We almost always go the more casual route with kind of a serve yourself style kitchen island setup. But every now and then when we're hosting a smaller group, we'll set out like real plates at each spot, pass the food around the like formal way. And either way you go, you can make your space and table setting elements as non-toxic as possible by following a few easy rules. So with casual, if you're doing, dishes and that's kind of a deal breaker for you, you want something that can be tossed, I would encourage you to get compostable. So not disposable plates and silverware, but compostable. Kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid, we'd go to a birthday party and everything was able to just be tossed at the end of the party. Well, it's kind of along the same lines, but now you can find all of the same table settings in non-toxic recyclable materials. On the blog this week, I am highlighting some really great finds from Earth Hero. You can use the code BF2021 for 20% off. And on top of that, they will actually plant 5 trees if you use that code for every order. So on the opposite end, you can go really formal. Sometimes you just want to be fancy. I think this was especially true for me after I finally upgraded our dinner plates from the handed down set that we had. That being said, there are ways that you can make sure the plates and silverware you're using are natural materials that don't contain heavy metals or other toxins. I think a lot of times we just assume because it looks glass or ceramic that it's probably safe, and unfortunately that isn't always the case. So in this week's post, I'm sharing with you how to purchase the right items. I also like to give you my top picks, but to be honest, I'd almost rather teach you how to shop for things than just what to buy. Entertaining and creating a non-toxic dining room can feel overwhelming when you kind of start thinking about everything you have to replace. But just remember that you can simply go with whatever route works for you. No stress necessary. You don't have to replace everything. You can pick and choose what you want to do. So let's get into the materials. So dinnerware and dishes can be a tricky thing when it comes to toxins. If you can find recycled glass, I think that is an excellent option when it comes to any sort of plate, serving dish, baking dish, it's a really great option. Ceramic is also a good choice, but some of the vintage and not so vintage plates and dishes can actually contain lead in the glazes, which is something we want to avoid. Unfortunately, testing for lead in the glaze is really expensive, and most of us don't have a great way to do this at home. Not to mention that even using the expensive XRF device, which I know a couple bloggers use to check for lead, only tells you the lead present. So it doesn't actually tell you what is leaching out of each plate. The number could be higher or lower. So it's not extremely accurate for what we need to know the lead amount for. Your best bet is to use dishware that has been made after 1971. This is when the FDA began limiting the amount of leachable lead in dinnerware. And then avoid any dishes with scratches on them or with like any verbiage on them that indicates that it's not safe for eating off of. So decorative, not safe for food use, things like that. The next thing that we can look at is stainless steel. So as for metal pieces, you want to opt for a metal that is like a hospital grade stainless steel. You can look for an 18/10 stainless steel. These are pieces that contain the least amount of heavy metals like chromium, and they're the least corrosive. You'll also want to avoid pieces that have any aluminum in them, and that would be in the surface. The next thing you could look for is you can even do like a natural wood. It would have to be like a solid wood. This is great for like a serving dish or a charcuterie board. So finding solid wood slabs that have no adhesives and use a food grade coating on them are the best option. You can find wood slabs that have no protective coating and are simply like conditioned with a food grade oil on websites like Etsy. I have a few linked in this week's post. Don't be afraid to message the creator and ask them questions about the materials they use. If you're going to be eating off of it, you definitely want to know. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is that compostable piece that I mentioned before. And I have several options linked in this week's blog post for you guys. So another thing we need to be careful of if we're going to do like more of a formal table is we might look at textiles. And when I say textiles, it's like tablecloths, napkins, placemats. I recently did an extensive post about pesticides, which I am linking in this week's blog post. And it talks about how they're getting into our home. What I found when I did my research was that textiles bring in a large portion of pesticides and other toxins. So you want to look for an organic cotton or an organic linen that has no additional treatment. So we don't want something that is water resistant or stain resistant. This often has PFOA chemicals in the product, and we want to look for something that's unbleached and undyed, or something that uses a natural dye. So I'm going to share with you just a little snippet of what I've got in this week's blog post. These are just a couple of the really fun finds that I have, but I have dishes, silverware, cups, mugs, platters, napkins, centerpieces. We talk about everything in this week's blog post. And I'm also kind of sharing with you some fun things. So I'm going to talk about some Green Guard Gold certified dining room furniture. So just because we're kind of on the topic of a table setting, I thought we should share this because sometimes we do upgrade our dining room, right? Or our kitchen. So one of the ways that I have been able to find a lot of Green Guard Gold certified furniture is by going to wayfair.com and using their Green Guard certified filter in my search. This is one of my absolute favorite ways to find a lot of options in one place for furniture pieces. There's another option that I really like. So if you're kind of, okay with being a little more on the DIY side, finding an unfinished piece of furniture from either Unfinished Furniture Expo or Home Depot is a great way that you can get a piece of solid wood. But then what you'll want to do is coat it with a natural wood stain. ECOS is one of my favorites. You can put one of their sealers on it. It's a bigger project, but it's a great way to go if you're looking for natural wood in your kitchen. And I don't think this post would be complete unless we talked about some healthy habits that you can implement while you're hosting large groups of people. I think large groups is relative nowadays. So some of us are probably just going to have a very small gathering. Some of us may have extra family members over, but there's still some really great habits that you can do when you're having people over to reduce the toxins inside. Essentially, a large group of people in an enclosed space means that exhaled toxins like carbon dioxide are at an all-time high. It also means that other toxins in your home from materials that produce VOCs aren't able to escape either. So some of these ideas are going to help reduce those toxins and then bring in fresh outdoor air. So the first is open your windows. Opening windows is always going to allow fresh air inside, and it will always lower the carbon dioxide levels dramatically. I think it's one of the best ways to cool off your space if it's gotten warm, as opposed to like turning on your air conditioning. Diluting your indoor air, which is filled with, like we talked about, toxins, VOCs, and particulate matter, with outdoor air can raise the indoor air quality immensely. You'll just want to make sure that your outdoor air quality is okay outside, and it's safe to breathe. The next thing you can do is run your HVAC fan. So if you have a furnace or an air conditioner that has a fan option, you can just turn that on, and what it does is it will just push air around your house without the heating or air function. So usually there's an option on your thermostat to have the fan on instead of auto. If you have like a Nest thermostat, you need to manually turn the fan on, and you can select how many hours you'd like to run it for. But this at least moves air around your house and cycles it through your HVAC filter, which will remove some impurities from the air. And then the last thing you can do is use an air purifier. So we use an air purifier every time we have guests over. It's a great way to reduce allergens and other toxins from the air to ensure that it's less toxic. An air purifier, like we use the Medify Air, filters out toxins like VOCs, mold spores, allergens, dust, and mold. And you can get the links for that on my website. I recommend running the air purifier for about an hour or so before your guests get there. And then if you can, let it run while they are in your home as well. If you're looking for more information, you can head to my blog post, which the link is at the bottom of my video description. But with the holidays around the corner, I know I'll be using some of these non-toxic table setting ideas myself. And I think it's a great way to make healthier changes without having to do a lot of work on your end. It's just simple swaps like the compostable dinnerware and natural table setting centerpieces that can make your dinner party less toxic and healthier for you and for all of your guests.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and going through this week's blog post in video format. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave me a comment, send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another healthy house tip on creating an indoor space that really supports your health and wellness.